If you're sick of all the attention going to 3-ton electric SUVs, then this video is for you, because sometimes exactly what you need is a small city car for nipping around the city. Well, today we're looking at two of the most stylish. I'm not sure I'm the right judge of that, given what I wear most of the time, but we're looking at chic city cars that you can buy right now, the Honda E and the Fiat 500e. And stick around for the end when we'll give you one more option that may well be better than both of those. Stay tuned. We'll get to batteries, range and performance in a bit, but let's kick off with one thing both of these cars have in common and I perhaps lack a little bit, and that is style. Now, it might not be to your taste, but they both look pretty cool. And if you don't think they look cool, they look distinctive though, right? We had the Honda E on the channel before, and Blake, who does our car reviews, had it for a week a little while ago. He loved the styling of this. He said it put a smile on his face like no other EV he had driven recently. Now, the first thing you notice when you look at the Honda is those big Japanese anime character eyes at the front. The circular lights give the car such a distinct look. The style of the lights is echoed around the back as well, with the concave recess housing a black glossy panel also. And you know what? I really like the hockey stick profile around the C-pillar. The Fiat also gets a nice refresh. I love the clamshell style bonnet and the way it cuts through the light cluster at the front. The closed off grille gives it a sleek look. It's also less poised than the Honda. Not a bad thing, although it's far from a heavyweight. The Honda just looks a bit beefier in comparison. On the inside, I think the Honda has a slightly more premium feel, but that's not surprising. It's more of a premium price. The Fiat also has a more traditional look compared to that incredible bank of screens that run window to window across the dash of the Honda. It's at the extremes of these screens that you get the camera feed from the stalks just outside, and that's because Honda has no wing mirrors. Bear with us for one more minute before we talk about batteries and performance. I want to mention the size and practicality for a moment. This is a strange one here. Normally having more space gets you more points in these comparison videos that we do, but in a sense, in your city cars, you want them to be small and nimble, so having a 600-litre boot behind you isn't necessarily a good thing if it makes the car too big and you can't fit in those parking spaces. The Fiat's a good bit shorter than the Honda at 3.63 metres, but interestingly you do get more space in the boot with 185 litres compared to the Honda's 171, but if you do need space and fold down the back seats, well, you get a measly 550 litres in the Fiat compared to the Honda's 861. There's not much of a difference in height and width. It's worth noting the Fiat, though, is quite a lot lighter, about 250 kilograms lighter than the Honda. And that's something that you'll feel as you nip around town. It's a bit like adding 3 light adults to the car and carrying them around as passengers. Okay, so let's say you want to have a bit of fun with these cars. What sort of power and speeds are we talking about? Well, the Honda's 113 kilowatt motor is more powerful than the Fiat's, a mere 87 kilowatts. It also has more torque, 315 newton meters compared to 220 for the Fiat. But having said that, it's still a nippy little car. The extra bit of weight in the rear-wheel drive Honda means it goes 0 to 62 miles an hour, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour in 8.3 seconds, marginally better than the Fiat's 9 seconds. Both cars top out about 95 miles an hour on the motorway, but then again, that's illegal on many of the roads around Europe anyway, and so you don't need much more than the legal speed limit. But what do you think about those numbers? Are they fast enough? Are they too fast for this kind of segment car? And who cares really about torque at motorway speeds? These are city cars, so what we really want to know is that burst of acceleration, the traffic light Grand Prix, 0 to 30 miles an hour, or even nipping past someone 20 to 40 perhaps. What do you reckon? Leave us your thoughts in the comments below. Now, the juicy stuff that we all want to talk about, the batteries, the range and the charging. We're talking about a city car here, so we'll be treating these differently than when we do something like compare the Model 3 to the Model Y or the Model 3 to the BMW i4. You should go watch that video. We released it recently. Anyway, let's start off with the batteries. A reminder, there is a cheaper Fiat 500e with a little tiddler of a battery, but it's so much cheaper than the Honda. Wouldn't be a fair test. So we're sticking with the 42 kilowatt hour version for this comparison. Usable 37.3, which does seem really small compared to many of the figures that we hear these days. But it's not that long since we were all intrigued by the updated Nissan Leaf, and that had a smaller battery. In comparison, the Honda comes in at 35.5 kilowatt hours, but 28.5 kilowatt hours is usable. And don't forget, it has an extra 250 kilograms to lug around. Where is all that weight coming from for a start? So how far can you go on these little pocket rockets? Well, let's start with the Honda. That has a WLTP rating of just under 140 miles. Now, like I mentioned, our reviewer, Blake, got 130 miles out of it. He went from 100% all the way down to 1%, but it was in favourable circumstances. Look, in regular driving, the Honda's probably good to 100 to 120 miles, less on the motorway, less in the winter when it's nippy-chippy, but more around town during summer, so swings and roundabouts. The Fiat, unsurprisingly, does a lot better. WLTP range, 200 miles, so a good bit more than the Honda. In real world, 150 plus miles is realistic. If it's just you in the car in general and potting around town and it's mild weather and you're using lots of regen to slow down, you'll get way over 200 miles in a car like this. And what happens when you want to recharge these little beauties? Well, let's not beat around the bush, because the Fiat is a hands-down winner. Look at the numbers. The Fiat's going to take 11 kilowatts on AC. That's pretty good. In many countries around Europe, there's a ton of 22 kilowatt AC posts you can plug in there while you go somewhere for a couple of hours, go to a movie, do your big weekly shop, an activity or a meal, meet friends, and the car's going to be full. The Honda is left stuck with 6.6 kilowatts maximum, so you're always going to be plugging in for 4 hours to fully charge it. On DC, Honda only 56 kilowatts. That's not impressive, Honda. That compares to the old Nissan Leaf. That's been out a decade. Fiat will take up to 85 kilowatts on DC charging. But it's not just about the speed that energy goes back into the battery, it's what the car does with it. And the Fiat is just a more efficient car. So what really separates these two small, stylish city cars, and why would you buy one over the other? At these price points, the difference in cost is much more of an issue than comparing the Model S Plaid to a Lucid Air, right? If you can afford that much money, 150 grand, then you can probably afford the other car that might be a bit more than 150 grand. Not so with this dilemma. The 42 kilowatt hour Fiat is significantly cheaper than the Honda if I were to buy it here. And if you opt for the smaller battery, you can save even more money. It may be different where you live depending on grants, incentives, and different rates. So when we look at the numbers, I think, just on paper, it's an easy win this time for the Italian Fiat. It's got a lot more range, it charges faster, it's cheaper, and you don't always buy a car with your wallet, you buy it with your heart sometimes, and for many, that's why the Honda is in their driveway. So, it's more quirky, it's a little faster, the interior is plush, and if you don't think it's plush, you'll agree it's different. The turning circle puts a big smile on your face, it's got a plug socket inside the car, all those screens and camera stalks rather than wing mirrors. It's certainly very different. I couldn't get either because, we need the space for a young family. But if I was getting a second car for a bit of fun, or maybe have something like the forthcoming ID Buzz, is your big family road trippy car, the thing that you get the bikes in and all the family gear, and then you have one of these little city cars for doing your errands, well, that is probably the ideal driveway EV combo. But remember I said we'd make another suggestion that might be even better. What about this, the Mini Cooper SE? Now, I love the design. I used to drive a Mini, go back 10 or 15 years, not the EV version. Considering where I'm from, I got so much goodwill towards the Mini badge as well. It looks cool. It's faster than the others. The ride is immersive and planted, and like driving a little roller skate. And that's the one that I would have. So, let us know what you think in the comments below. Two great little cars featured today, and not nearly enough time to get through all the details. What would you go for and why? Or maybe you'd pick the Mini. And what about the discussion about the size of modern cars? They just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. But that does often mean bigger battery sizes. So, do these cars have a place in the EV world? Let us know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment, hit like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.